where faith, culture, and politics collide. This is Give Me Liberty Media. This is the Tyler Morgan Show on Relentless Daring Media Network. Welcome back to the land of bourbon and bad decisions. This is the Tyler Morgan Show live on twitch.tv/Tyler Morgan Show, or maybe you're checking this out on YouTube, youtube.com/@the Tyler Morgan Show, or you're checking this out on podcast. Remember, if you are a new podcast listener, be sure to follow or subscribe, rate, review, and share this episode or the podcast in general with someone who you think will enjoy it, or with someone who you think this will drive them absolutely bat crap crazy because they're dumb libs who need to be driven crazy. But before I get into all the news that's fit to comment on, let me tell you about coffee. Apparently I clicked the wrong one. So now I will tell you about coffee instead, and I will save the other one for later in the show. So coffee, it's one of those great beverages that just gets you up, gets you fired up, ready for the day. Of course, having some nice Legion bourbon right now. Not a sponsor of the show. I just enjoy it. But can't drink bourbon all day, so I drink coffee. Coffee is amazing. Gets me up, gets me energized. It brings me joy when I'm feeling very unjoyful. And the best coffee I have found is from American Pride Roasters. American Pride Roasters is a small company. They order the beans, they roast the beans, they get them out to you, and they have so many great blends and flavors of coffee to work with. Today, my wife had a craft thing that she was doing, and I was with her, and I didn't want to spend money on expensive coffee that people running booths around me said was not very good. And I'm glad that I prepared a thermos of Calvin Coolidge Blend American Pride Roasters to take with me, and I was able to drink that all day without spending ridiculous amount of money on subpar coffee. So give them a chance. Check them out. They have great coffees. Like I said, the Calvin Coolidge, Teddy Roosevelt is one that I like. The Thomas Paine Age of Reason Remix, which is 100% Robusta beans with an extra caffeine kick. Check out all the flavors. They have regular coffee. They have flavored coffees. The Burr Hamilton is one of those flavored coffees. I do have some Doc's Bacon Blast. It's a tribute to the late, great Doc Thompson. And so many other great flavors. Ron's Sexual Chocolate, if you like a chocolate with a hint of raspberry to it. So many great flavors. Check them out. Check out their coffee drops. They're like chocolate chips with coffee beans ground up, mixed into it. So good. Check it out. So many great things. aprcoffee.com. Historically great coffee. All righty. So getting into all the news that is fit to drive you absolutely bonkers. Pardon me. I have got to say that this is my last couple weeks. I was off last week, but coming back this week, and there's just been so much going on that it's hard to kind of pin down what you want to talk about. But this is a story that has been blowing up social media in terms of the consequences of the repeal of Roe versus Wade. And it's yet another attempt. I mean, I said this a couple weeks ago when I discussed the Georgia school shooting about how Democrats love dead bodies. They love dead kids. They love dead babies. If you're an adult and you die and they can make political hay out of your death, they love your dead corpse too. And when it comes to all of the arguments and fighting over Roe versus Wade and Dobbs v. Jackson, pardon me, um, any opportunity they get to roll out someone who has been victimized, air quotes, they will do it. Right after the Dobbs v. Jackson ruling, there was the doctors in one state had to send this child to another state to be able to get an abortion after she got pregnant. Yeah, well, it's probably because the mom's illegal alien boyfriend is the one who's committed statutory rape and impregnated the child. And yeah, that is neither here nor there, but trying to avoid the asking of questions about how this child got pregnant. But I digress. In this case, it goes down to Georgia. Now, I don't have Georgia's abortion rules on the book, Georgia's abortion laws right in front of me to directly go off of. But in this case, a young mother, she already has one child, gets pregnant and decides that she's going to do a medical abortion. She's going to do a medicinal abortion, chemical abortion, if you will. And as a result, she died. And so now her death is being held up by Democrats as, oh my God, this is why these states and their stupid abortion rules, blah, 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 blah. All right, so this is from Blaze TV staff. That's what it says, the author, but I want to give the Blaze credit because that's where I'm getting the story. A young mother tragically passed away after taking the abortion pill and encountering severe complications. Her name was Amber Thurman, and she's become the latest political pawn whose untimely death is being used to push political propaganda, specifically and twistedly, abortion propaganda. Democrats, the media, and activists are trying to blame Georgia's pro-life law and Donald Trump for her death. Allie Beth Stuckey of Relatable comments, noting that Thurman passed away in 2022, but is just now making the headlines. Thurman was 9 weeks pregnant with twins when she decided to take abortion pills that would end the lives of her two babies before becoming critically ill hours after taking the second pill. She was rushed to the hospital where the doctors failed to treat her appropriately, and she later died of sepsis. Quote, now the pro-abortion side is blaming Georgia's abortion ban for the doctor's unwillingness to act and ultimately for her death, end quote, Stuckey says, noting that Thurman had scheduled a D&C abortion in North Carolina, which stands for dilation and curettage. There's actually a vacuum tube that is placed in the cervix of the mother into the uterus to suck out these living babies from the womb. Now, the hope is at that point, these babies are already dead because there's a variety of ways that they try to starve and poison babies before the D&C, but that's not always the case, she explains. Thurman had reportedly gotten stuck in traffic and missed her abortion and was offered 2 abortion pills instead. From my understanding, without even seeing her, without even doing another ultrasound confirming how far along she was, this Planned Parenthood just said, yeah, take these abortion pills. Stuckey explains, adding, and this is approved, by the way, by the FDA. At first, Thurman was only suffering cramps, but after taking the second pill, she began bleeding profusely. When she made it to the hospital, they found that she still had baby remnants in her uterus and an infection. Unfortunately, this happens far too often in these situations, Stuckey says, And you'll remember it is the abortion lobby that has fought tooth and nail against every Republican legislative attempt to ensure that women are under a doctor's care when they are going through an abortion. Yeah, that was a big thing in Missouri when prior to Missouri's pretty much ban on abortion, they tried to say, okay, if you're an abortion clinic in Missouri, your care team has to have admitting privileges at a nearby hospital. That way, if there is a medical emergency that arises during this horrific process, that woman can be immediately transported and admitted to that hospital. That way, if, say, during a D&C abortion, you run the cannula accidentally through the uterine wall to prevent internal bleeding, well, not really prevent, but to staunch internal bleeding and to prevent infection, the doctor or the abortionist, if it's a nurse practitioner, whatever, pardon me, has the ability to quickly call the hospital and say, hey, this is the situation. I have a patient that needs treated immediately and then they can admit that patient to the hospital over the phone. So that all the admittance stuff is done while the patient is in transport via ambulance. And Planned Parenthood sued the state of Missouri because it put an undue burden on their abortion clinics. Because how dare a medical provider that does things inside the human body have a way to quickly put a patient from their clinic into the hospital if something goes wrong. That doesn't sound like they want to ensure, the life of the mother, the health of the mother. I mean, they preach all the time. If they don't have access to this, it puts their lives at jeopardy. Oh my God. They don't care about that. If they really cared about that, they would go, you know what, state of Missouri, that seems like a really good idea to ensure a patient has the proper treatment if in fact there is an injury or side effects from sedation for X number of reasons of things that could go wrong during this procedure. We can ensure the health and welfare of the mother. No, this is, I want to avoid accountability. This is Kermit Gosnell. Crap, the baby survived the abortion. Dead. That's that level of care for the mother. As long as they get paid, if the mother dies on the table or the mother dies from, taking these pills, not our problem. Anyways, I digress. Back to the story. Now, the Democrat Party is blaming Georgia's pro-life laws for Thurman's death. However, the law specifically offered an exception for cases like Thurman's. If the act performed with the purpose of removing a dead unborn child caused by spontaneous abortion or removing an ectopic pregnancy, it is allowed. So definitely she could have legally gotten a D&C after her baby died inside of her in the state of Georgia. That is completely legal. Now, that's where the hospital's legal staff, we live in a litigious society. I stubbed my toe walking into your store. I'm suing you. that's where we are in society is a fact. But they see these laws, and according to the law, if the act is performed with the purpose of removing a dead or unborn child caused by spontaneous abortion, aka miscarriage, or removing an ectopic pregnancy, in other words, for those who don't understand, that is a pregnancy where the fertilized egg implants inside the fallopian tube versus in the uterus. And then, number one, it's not going to be a viable pregnancy because there's not enough, cannot produce enough uh, endometrial tissue in the, in the fallopian tubes to support a pregnancy beyond a certain stage. And also, as that implanted embryo grows, it can, if it does not die as a result of lack of nutrition, again, endometrial tissue cannot form. It can, the baby can grow to the point where it ruptures the fallopian tube, and then massive internal trauma to the mother. So, and yeah, and now the left is, like I said, is just parading her dead body. They dug her up after being dead for 2 years. Oh, look what happened. Oh, and there was some other Planned Parenthood nut job saying something similar happened recently to his wife here in Texas, where she miscarried, like not a not not an abortion, not take the 2 pills and call me in the morning abortion, a naturally occurring miscarriage. And my heart goes out to him and to his wife for the loss of this child before it's even born. But in, I said, this is Texas. Texas has a similar law. In the event of a spontaneous abortion or ectopic pregnancy, a D&C may be performed in order to remove the fetus, remove the baby, remove tissue if the baby is only partially expelled after the miscarriage. And I think in his case, it was the doctors were like, well, they prescribed the second pill basically from medical abortions in an attempt for her to expel the baby at home, which seems kind of traumatic to me, but okay, I'm not the doctor. And when that didn't happen, they went back, saw a different doctor, and instead of saying, hey, do a D&C and we'll make sure your wife's taken care of, they gave her another pill, and he found her unconscious on the bathroom floor, and she developed sepsis and was in the hospital because of it. And he's blaming, well, the Texas laws. Like, no, you didn't have bad. It wasn't Texas laws. Texas laws clearly state she would have been a viable candidate for a D&C. The problem is you had doctors making bad decisions. There's a guy I follow on Twitter, Dr. Greg Marchand. I think it's Marchand, but he is an OBGYN out of Arizona. And he quote tweeted this story and said, yeah, you had bad doctors. If your wife was my patient and she had a miscarriage and I had prescribed the pill and it didn't work, I would have immediately gotten you in for an emergency D&C to prevent this from happening. You're not a victim of laws. You're a victim of bad doctoring. And, maybe it is poor decisions on doctors in that case. Maybe it is a medical system, a hospital that is incredibly worried about facing lawsuit from the state for performing this DNC, which I would imagine that the staff the staff lawyers would be a little bit better versed on the laws concerning medicine in the state of Texas. I'm not an attorney. I don't understand. I don't understand all the laws that pertain to the work I do. I know that I am, on this, if I say something blatantly misrepresentative in a way that's trying to defame somebody, I could be sued for almost said libel. Libel's in print. For slander. So I go out of my way to not slander people on this because I understand slander is wrong. And it's a civil violation, not an actual legal violation. So while it is lawful to slander somebody, I really don't want to get sued. I make zero money on this podcast. So, slandering somebody would not be in my benefit. But I understand here's why I should not do it. And this is why I try, have my sources and my stories. And I make sure I separate my opinions from the story. But yeah, it's just back to it because my ADHD brain is just kind of going where it wants. I mean, it's ridiculous, though, that Democrats will use anybody, anytime, anywhere, regardless of having a pulse or not, to push some form of propaganda in order to, spin a narrative. When it comes to school shootings, they will stack up the bodies of the dead children and use that to go after guns. With Pulse nightclub, they stacked up the bodies of 49 dead people, not to speak out against Islamic extremism, which is what was the ultimate motivation in shooting up the Pulse nightclub, because the guy originally wanted to shoot up Disney, but determined, hey, it's too much security at Disney. I can't do that. And then seemingly at random decided, hey, this is a nightclub. There will be lots of people there. That's why I'm going to shoot up. And so they went after him for, well, this was an attack on the LGBTQIA2 plus ad infinitum community. No, it wasn't directly. They were the victims, but them being part of the gay, lesbian, trans community is not the reason why they were targeted. And then, so when that didn't work, they just left those 49 dead bodies there and then climbed right back up and said, oh, this is about the guns. No, this is about you using dead people to push a narrative for all the wrong reasons. If there's a tragedy with dead people and you use that to activate the community in a positive manner, to pull together to do good things, to not attack civil liberties. And yes, the Second Amendment, the right to own guns, is 100% a civil liberty. You're not going after civil liberties. You're going after way. Okay, how can we make this more secure? How can we find ways to better prevent stuff like this from happening? That is that isn't a way to honor those that were killed in the tragedy, those that were victims who have to recover from the injuries sustained from all of this. But when you just stack the bodies and use them as a soapbox, that is beyond uncouth. And speaking of people who get away with stuff, and school shootings and all these people who magically appear on. We find out after the fact that, well, they were on the FBI, on law enforcement's radar for some time. Wait, they're on the radar? Why wasn't more done? Huh, that's odd. Which, don't get me wrong, you can't arrest people for future crimes. However, that kid in Georgia made a terroristic threat, even if he did not say, on this day at this time, using this weapon, I'm going to commit a school shooting. Just, he threatened a school shooting. He should have been arrested for making a terrorist threat right then and there. He should have already been in jail. Weapons in his home should have been removed. But I digress. I'm going to go to the story. This is from justthenews.com. So, the FBI has come under renewed heat after admitting it had previously notified that the suspect in the second assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump, illegally had a gun due to his status as a convicted felon. The missed opportunity involving Ryan Wesley Routh, I can't believe I just said his name. Damn it. I try not to say these people's names because 90% of the time they're doing this for some sort of clout or notoriety. And so I go out of my way to not say their names. I messed up. It's not the first time the Bureau was notified about an individual who went on to commit or attempted to commit a major crime. The FBI told Just the News in a statement on Tuesday that it received thousands of tips every day, which is filtered through its National Threat Operations Center in West Virginia. The tips involving a threat to life, serious bodily injury, or significant violent acts are treated as the highest priority and referred to the appropriate FBI field office or other relevant office. Through this process, the FBI was notified about the dangers that certain people could pose at least 5 times in recent years, and those people went on to commit mass shootings or attempted to kill Donald Trump. Here's a look at these incidents and what the FBI admitted to knowing before the events. The most recent event took place on Sunday when 58-year-old suspect, not saying it again, allegedly aimed an AK-47. It was an SKS. Oh my God. Can we get the type of weapon right? For God's sake. It was an SKS. A bubbled up, jerry-rigged SKS with the polymer stock, and I even know how he got the scope on that thing, but he did. He may have used his own machine screws and a drill to drill the mounts into the gas cover. I don't know, but it was a jerry-rigged, bubbled up SKS, not an AK-47. I can tell you that because the barrel's too damn long, the gas block is too small, and it doesn't even have, it has the right shape magazine, and fires the same rounds, but it's not an AK-47. Ugh! Through a fence at Trump's golf course before being spotted by a Secret Service agent. But blank, who was charged with possession of a firearm as a felon and possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number, had been flagged to the FBI back in 2019. I get it. How old were you 5 years ago? I'm just saying. I can also share with you that he was the subject of a previously closed 2019 tip to the FBI where it was alleged he was a felon in possession of a firearm. Special agent in charge of the FBI's Miami field office, Jeffrey Veltri, said on Monday. And following up the tip, the alleged complainant was interviewed and did not verify. I repeat, did not verify providing the initial information. The FBI passed that information to local law enforcement in Honolulu. Douche was previously convicted of having a weapon of mass death and destruction in North Carolina in 2002, according to federal prosecutors. So again, he could have been serving a jail sentence for felon in possession, but instead of having the FBI in Hawaii serve a search warrant, they just, Honolulu PD, you take care of this. We're a little too busy with the surf and the sun. The Georgia school shooting. Prior to the second assassination attempt on Trump, the FBI admitted it was notified about online posts from a student who went on to commit a school shooting in Georgia earlier this month, which resulted in the deaths of 4 people and injured 9 others. Social media posts that were reportedly made by blankety blank blank were flagged by the FBI's National Threat Operations Center in May of 2023. After he allegedly made online threats about committing a school shooting. Again, allegedly. But he made the terrorist threats via social media and he was not prosecuted. The FBI said it did not have enough evidence at the time to arrest the then 13-year-old, but the FBI Atlanta field office referred the matter over to Jackson County Sheriff's Office, who interviewed Gray and his father. Gray's father had also been charged in relation to the shooting for allegedly allowing his teenage son to have access to weapons. I think it's a dumb charge, but again, if your kid was making online threats and you still give him an AR-15 to make a man out of you, you little pansy, which is some of the allegations. It's the reason why he gave him that as a Christmas present to make a man out of him. Then, yeah. Oh, well, hello, Ahmed. I see that you've been saying some horrible things about the Jewish synagogue here in town. I think that's really bad, but hey, here is some kerosene and some ammonium nitrate fertilizer, for your tractor and your garden. Don't do anything crazy with them. Yeah, you don't give material support to people who are making terroristic threats. So I understand why he was charged. The Colorado LGBTQIA2+ club shooting. The FBI was also notified about the convicted shooter of a gay club in Colorado Springs in 2022, before the shooting, which killed 5 and injured 19. The FBI said concerns regarding blankety blank blank were first flagged by family members in June 2021. What's that? Almost a year beforehand. Oh, more than a year. He was arrested in June 2021 for threatening to kill family members, but the federal case was closed in July after state charges were pending against him. But those state charges were eventually dropped. Gee, I wonder why. Could it be that because no actual violence took place, that these reform prosecutors in places like Colorado, Denver, Colorado Springs, and the like tend to, oh, well, he didn't actually commit any violence. Sure, he broke the law because he's charged with these crimes, but we're just going to drop the charges because he never actually did anything aside from break the law that is already on the books. But I digress. The Parkland shooting, yes, one of the more common known wolf attacks. Blankety blank, who would go on to kill 17 people at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Elementary School in Parkland, Florida, should have been on the FBI's elementary school. It was a high school. Who wrote this? You suck at your job. It's a high school. They were teenagers, you dip. Should have been on the FBI's radar approximately 6 weeks before the 2018 shooting took place. The FBI admitted it received a tip about him from a person close to him on January 5th, 2028. Holy shnikes. John Solomon. Who is your copy editor and why are they retarded? Why can they not do their job and copy edit? January 5th, 2028? I get it. They fat fingered a 2 instead of a 1. But holy crap balls. Seriously? Who's the oh my gosh. I will be tagging the crap out of people and I'll be sharing this clip because I cannot. My brain will not let it go. For a person close to him on January 5th, 2018. I fixed it for you. But the Bureau failed to follow up. The individual left information on a public tip line about the convicted shooter's gun ownership, desire to kill people, erratic behavior, and disturbing social media posts, as well as the potential of him conducting a school shooting, end quote, NBC News reported at the time. The Bureau said the tip should have been referred to the Miami field office for further evaluation, but procedure was not followed. FBI Director Christopher Wray also acknowledged the error. Is it an error? Is it really an error? I mean, we're traveling backwards in time. An error is it happens once. Beginning to see the starts of a pattern is that happens on the second one. And by the third one, you have a pattern. 100% have a pattern. This is not a series of screw-ups and ineptitude. This is SOP at this point. Again, the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting. He had been on the FBI's radar for 3 years. 3 years! But was not considered a threat and was never the target of a formal investigation. The shooter, blankety blank blank, went on to kill 49 people and injured 53 others. Former FBI Director James Comey claimed in 2016 the FBI had spoken to him in 2013 about inflammatory comments he made to co-workers. He was interviewed by the FBI again in 2014 after he was connected to an American suicide bomber in Syria. But both times he was not considered dangerous. Dude, who was killed by local police in the shootout, reportedly confessed to the shooting in a phone call to 911 before his death. Oh my gosh. Ridiculousness. Like I said, and these aren't the only ones who were known to law enforcement prior to committing their crimes. Is it the guy in Buffalo who went and shot up primarily black neighborhood grocery store? That douche canoe who drove a long ways to go to that grocery store. Like, I mean, this dude was intent. He was surprise, surprise, on the FBI's radar for threats that he was making. Oh my gosh. All right. So before I get to the next story, I'm 40 minutes into this silly show. I do need to tell you about what keeps my luscious man mane that I'm growing back in good working order. Keeps it from being all itchy, keeps it from being all gross, keeps it from having hairs that just kind of break off and your skin gets all irritated underneath. I use beard oil from Blue Collar Beardsman, bluecollarbeardsman.com. They have an amazing selection of scents. You can sign up for their subscription service where you get the scent of the month. This month they had a certified forklift operator, which is really nice smelling. And as a certified forklift operator, I was very, very happy with you know having those skills that I possess and use at work on occasion, be recognized. Like some of the other ones, I had an underwater welder is one. I cannot weld underwater. I can weld. And it's nice that a company that is owned by someone who is a fellow blue collar worker. I mean, he not only does he own the Blue Collar Beardsman, he owns his own HVAC shop and he puts in so many hours. He knows what it's like to need a product that works as hard as you do, that will last throughout the day. And I'm minimizing things and lasts throughout the day, smells great all day. It doesn't leave your face and your hands all like kind of sticky and gross like some oils do. Check them out, bluecollarbeardsman.com. And again, if you sign up for their subscription, you can get their scent of the month every month, just shipped straight to you. Check them out, bluecollarbeardsman.com. All right. So after all that yelling, I'm going to go what says at the says on the title, Congress versus Department of Education. All right, this is again from Just the News. Please let this one be properly copy edited as I go through the story. All right, so lawfully issued congressional subpoenas are not subject to interference from the White House or its appointed leaders of departments, North Carolina Congresswoman Virginia Foxx says. The Republican bidding for an 11th term in the Beltway chastised Education Secretary Miguel Cardona for repeatedly trying to interfere with the work of the committee she leads in the U.S. House of Representatives. The Committee on Education and the Workforce has subpoenaed 5 student loan servicers, and Cardona's department says it has legal authority to review and approve materials before they are sent to the committee, a release says. You may have the ability to review materials, but you don't outweigh the Constitution. Fox writes in part to Cardona, quote, the department has repeatedly sought to interfere with the committee's efforts to obtain documents and communications in a timely manner from the loan servicers. Not only has the department interfered with the committee's ability to conduct oversight, but it has also failed to answer the committee's prior inquiry of August 14th, 2024, seeking information about the timing of the department's regulation promoting additional student debt relief, end quote. According to the letter, Lisa Brown, as legal counsel for the Education Department on September 5th, through a letter, said the loan servicer's response must meet prior approval from the contracting officer of the department. She cited a contract term. Fox said contract terms do not override Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. Pardon me. Some documents have been received by the committee. 3 conference calls have taken place between staff of the committee and staff of the Education Department. This is stonewalling because this goes back to the Joe Biden stroke of a pen, issuing student debt relief without an appropriations bill by Congress, because they're not just waving a magic wand and that debt disappears. They're taking these federally subsidized loans and they are buying them out. That is how the debt is being relieved. We're just buying it out. If we pay it off, you don't, owe, because these are not federal lenders, these are private lenders. And so the student loans are then backed by the US government through these Department of Education loans. So they're trying to, this whole idea that you can use some sort of legalese to weasel your way around the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. It's unfathomable. I mean, don't get me wrong, every executive branch from Joe Biden all the way back to George Washington was I still have that blue collar beersman thing up. Let me hide that banner. Pardon me. Had a contentious relationship with Congress, and that's how it's supposed to be. Because, hey, you want funding for this department, you need to come through us. And look right here in the Constitution, if we say we don't like the way you're doing things and we have oversight, so we're going to subpoena you, guess what? You will answer the subpoena. Unfortunately, we are in a day and age with political advisors and political appointees who are as bad as many of the ones under the Grant administration, the Johnson administration, the Andrew Jackson administration. Everyone hates everyone. Everyone's mad at everyone. And there are many attempts, it seems, to just find ways to play screw you over and over again. But the fact of the matter is, the Congresswoman from North Carolina is absolutely correct. This is hot garbage and is absolutely inexcusable. Now, last story. All right, so, look. Hey, I know one of these. Two of these. On August 29th, the subpoenas went out to Missouri Higher Education Loan Authority, a.k.a. MOHELA, Nelnet Servicing, LLC, Maximus DBA, Advantage, Ed Financial Services, and Research, Inc. Fox closed the letter saying, this letter serves as a warning. The department must release the loan servicer's documents to the committee by noon on Tuesday. Now, keep in mind, this article was written today. Will they get the documents on Tuesday, or will Secretary Cardona be drawn before Congress and publicly horsewhipped, possibly tarred and feathered, and run out of town on a rail, maybe impeached for violating a congressional subpoena? Probably not. He might be found in contempt of the committee and in contempt of Congress, but what's going to happen? If he's found in contempt of Congress, Congress will send it to the DOJ, who will be like, that's cute. We're not going to prosecute. We're not going to prosecute like we did. I don't know, Steve Bannon, because no one ever gets prosecuted for contempt of Congress. I mean, look what happened to former Attorney General. Oh, dadgummit. under Bush administration, not Bush, the Obama administration, Operation Fast and Furious dip thong. I didn't want to say what was going to go through my head because I'm trying to keep it PG-13. Don't judge me. So call them a dip thong. It's a has nothing to do with underwear. Has more to do with grammar and speech patterns. But I digress. Yeah, the former attorney general under Eric Holder. I knew it would come to me eventually. Eric Holder was found in contempt of Congress, and because he refused to provide documentation concerning Fast and Furious, where the U.S. federal government, via the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, were telling border state gun stores, do not do background checks when these guys come in because we want to see where the guns are going. So they were selling AR-15s and other firearms to guys who worked for cartels who would smuggle the guns across the border. And I will be damned if a U.S. border agent was not killed by a gun sold by one of these gun stores who was told not to run background checks as part of this government operation. I said, Holder was found in contempt of Congress, but he was the attorney general. Who in the Department of Justice is going to go after their boss and prosecute him for anything? I know it smells like corruption. It looks like corruption. I'm pretty sure if you licked it, it would taste like corruption. I don't recommend licking anything in Washington, D.C. You may find some disease that is worse than corruption, like the gonosyphilis herpes. But that's what's going on. This is just government protecting government, bureaucracy protecting itself. And speaking of protecting itself, last thing before I get out of here. So, earlier this year, there were pictures of slides released during Fort Bragg. Now it's Fort Liberty. I have to, which, they named it after a concept, or they renamed Fort Bragg after a concept and not a person. Where is Fort Determination? Where is Fort Pissed Off? Where is Fort Perturbed? That's where I don't want to be stationed. Fort Perturbed. Anyways, so at this insider threat briefing, there's a slide that came up that showed pro-life organizations as part of extremist groups. Okay. Well, we got these from the Southern Poverty Law Center, blah, blah, blah. All right, so the Army claims its extremism policy is unbiased, but lawmakers aren't so sure. Members of the House Armed Services Committee grilled the U.S. Army's Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations Plans and Training this week over the recent revelation that nearly 10,000 soldiers at North Carolina's Fort Liberty were trained to believe that pro-life organizations qualify as, quote, terrorist groups, end quote. Lieutenant General Patrick Matlock suggested during the Thursday hearing that corrective action has been taken, though he was altogether light on details, refusing to indicate whether that someone had actually been fired, suspended, and or demoted for likening champions of the unborn to mass-killing jihadis. Congressman Jim Banks, chairman of the subcommittee on military personnel, and members from both parties did not appear to be buying what Matlock was selling, especially his piece about accountability. That's weird how that word just keeps popping up tonight. Quote, I think the reason you can't answer that question is because You know, and we know that no one else has ever been held accountable for this training that started in 2017 and occurred until a few months ago. I think that's a big embarrassment for the U.S. Army. End quote. It's dangerous and it's a bad pattern, added Banks, who stressed at the outset the Biden Harris Pentagon, the U.S. Army, are undermining First Amendment and targeting conservative speech and values. End quote. Matt Gaetz, Florida, suggested that letting this happen for nearly 7 years and then remaining mum on what the consequences are when finally called out serve only to increase the recidivism of this type of behavior. Corey Mills, another Florida representative, he's literally saying we have no idea whether or not it's going on in other locations in the Army. We have no idea whether or not this is continuing as it has for 7+ years. Blaze News previously reported that a slide from the Fort Liberty anti-terrorism awareness training session was posted on social media on July 10th by DoD whistleblower Sam Shoemate. Shoemate received an image from the U.S. Army soldier who sat through the training meeting. That same soldier told Blaze News, the briefing was simply a class on how to be a gate guard and what to look for when on duty. Gate guard duty is something all of us have to do from time to time. It was presented by a DoD civilian, not an anti-terrorism officer, added the soldier. The offending slide, which appeared immediately after a section on the mass raping, mass killing jihadi group ISIS, was labeled terrorist groups and featured the logos of National Right to Life and Operation Rescue. It also featured an image of a customized Choose Life license plate, the kind sold in at least 33 states and the District of Columbia to help raise money for crisis pregnancy centers. The slate noted that extra to opposing Roe v. Wade, these supposed terrorist groups engage in picketing, demonstrations, and protests, and mass sidewalk counseling. Oh my God! There's a group of people counseling on the sidewalk. They're telling pregnant women what not to do. They're explaining what the abortion process is. They're praying for women on the sidewalks. This is unacceptable. I know, I'm going full Sam Kinison. I love it. I mean, seriously, mass counseling is as dangerous as mass rape and murder. Only under the Biden administration can peaceful, law-abiding citizens and their peaceful activities be considered terrorism. National Right to Life President Carol Tobias responded at the time. The Biden administration promotes the deaths of preborn babies and advocates for unlimited abortion, but peaceful pro-life Americans are labeled as terrorists, especially if you have the audacity to pray outside of an abortion clinic. Then you may get sent to prison for 7 years because how dare you prevent a woman from getting an abortion and killing her baby. Blaze News, Steve Baker, the investigative journalist who originally spoke to the soldier who first exposed the pro-life group's misleading characterization in the Army briefing, said that the slide is devastating. Can you imagine a soldier's wife with one of these pro-life bumper stickers, of which there are millions across the country, pulling up to a gate guard? Oh my gosh, I don't know who wrote this. To a gate guard at Fort Liberty or Fort wherever, and all of a sudden, the guard that sat through that training where the slide was showed immediately figures the soldier's wife and the 2 kids in the back seat are terrorists on the level of ISIS, said Baker. Despite the appearance the Army has an issue with Americans harboring pro-life views, Matlock alleged Thursday that the Army is unbiased and there was no political motivation behind the training and that the issue was localized. Baker cast doubt on Matlock's claims. The Army initially implied in July that the slide was an aberration, stating that the slides presented on social media were not vetted by the appropriate approval authorities, and that they do not reflect the views of the 18th Airborne Corps, Fort Liberty, the U.S. Army, or the Department of Defense. However, Baker noted the military whistleblower Samuel Shoemate of Terminal CWO was soon inundated with calls and messages from all over the country saying basically, bullcrap, this is systemic. We've seen it in our own bases, in our own briefings. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Baker underscored the systemic antipathy for Americans with pro-life views at the Pentagon has made its way down to the lowest rungs, but that this ideological capture has been years in the making. The long march of the long march of the institutions, if you will. The decapitation and replacement of the military's leadership began in earnest during the Obama administration. The bulk of the top brass were dismissed and replaced for nothing more than philosophical and political reasons. And I believe that 100%. Now, the senior leadership is largely made up of political activists. Baker's recent exclusive report about how the Pentagon dropped the ball on January 6th highlighted the fallout in the military of the prioritization of politics over strategy and effectiveness. Baker and Joseph M. Hanneman detailed various indications that career officials at the Pentagon interfered with the deployment of National Guard on Jan 6 over fear of bad optics. This is going to be solved by the next commander in chief. He's the only one that can solve it. He's the only one that will have the authority to go in and replace these political activist generals, admirals, and the rest of the leadership within the Pentagon, both enlisted and civilian. Yeah, good luck on the civilian one because they have their precious unions. Because we saw Donald Trump fire a VA hospital director, the guy in charge of the entire hospital, fire him because did such a piss poor running that VA hospital, and people were dying, literally waiting to be seen, waiting for a room because they needed to be admitted. And what happened? Well, he went to his union. He went to the government workers union, and they said, no, 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 Mr. Trump, you cannot fire him because you see, he's not a political appointee. You don't have any authority. He is an everyday applied through USA Jobs employee. And so you cannot get rid of him. He is under the union protection. So he was given a different job. So I hope to God he was actually demoted to janitor and still received his same pay and got to stay on until he was able to collect his retirement. Because why not? Uh, yeah. The Pentagon hates the soldiers. The Pentagon hates you, the American people. The current administration hates our soldiers and hates you, the American people. So, is anyone really shocked that they go out of their way to paint people who, generally speaking, are absolutely the kindest, gentlest people? Don't get me wrong. There are loose cannons who they are the John Browns of the anti-abortion movement. These are the yahoos, the sick, twisted freaks who decide that, you know what, picketing isn't enough. I'm gonna make it go boom. I'm gonna set it on fire. But we don't see that very often. I mean, you had the guy who blew up Centennial Park in the '96 Olympics, who they tried making this huge deal about how he was a huge anti-abortion activist. No, he just used that as cover as a way to he make a small bomb that would get the cops there and then make a bigger bomb go off to kill as many cops as possible because he didn't give two craps about stopping abortion. Talking about stopping abortions, how he was able to get help from extreme right wingers in the South. How he's able to gain their trust by lying to them. He didn't give a rat's hairy ass about saving babies. He just wanted to kill people. End of the story. But yeah, we see all this time where the right is accused of what the left is doing. The right is accused of being so extreme in their anti-abortion rhetoric, yet very seldom do you see anti-abortion people attacking abortion doctors, attacking the workers. They might harass and harangue because there are people who are just jerks, but for the most part, you see people picketing and praying. But when it comes to firebombing, oh no, that is the pro-abortion people attacking and firebombing these crisis pregnancy centers because how dare you save the baby? I mean, that's just what it comes down to. The left projects what they do on the people they hate. They hate you and I. They hate veterans. They hate soldiers. So that they project soldiers do all this bad stuff, and veterans are just these unstable, unhinged individuals. Meanwhile, they're the ones who do the unstable and unhinged things. So remember, whenever you see a story from the left, always question it. Always ask, let's can we dig a little deeper on this? I think there's something that's being left out or being misrepresented. That's a lot of these stories have in common is the misrepresentation of, you know, an abortion death, of what certain student loan lenders are doing and trying to block access to Congress, misrepresenting how, oh, it's just one military base, it's a local thing. And then people immediately say, no, no, bruh. Definitely saw it here at Fort Waxahachie in the middle of nowhere. For the record, I do not believe that there is actually a Fort Waxahachie, just throwing out a random Texas name because, I can. All right, so that's going to wrap up the show. Again, if you are a new viewer on the YouTubes, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. That way, whenever I do a new episode or if I have something kind of bonusy, some kind of bonusy content and put up, guess what? You will get a notification via your cellular device knowing, hey, Tyler just put up new stuff. So again, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share. If you are a podcast listener and you are new, please ask the same four things I said earlier in the show. I'm going to say it again. Number one, please subscribe or follow for the Apple podcast platform. Once you've done that, please rate this show. I'm looking for 5 stars. I'll accept 4. 3 and below, we need to have a conversation. You can DM me on Twitter at Fake Tyler Morgan. My DMs are open. Explain to me why you feel you need to give me 3 or less stars. Believe me, I'm not going to be mad. However, if you're just trying to do a bunch of insulting garbage, I'll only give you 1 star because you look like blah, blah, blah. Dude, I'm not even going to engage. We're probably going to end up blocking you. I'd say, hey, I'm giving you 3 stars because XYZ lay out a nice, even keel platform. Hey, guess what? I accept constructive criticism. Constructive criticism from you, the listener, makes me better. So please feel free to DM me and give me constructive criticism. Once you have rated it the 4 or 5 stars, please write a review, say something nice. If you're not a fan of the show, be honest. Say you don't like it because XYZ. Don't be that knucklehead who calls me a wannabe Alex Jones, or I talk about myself way too much, because I will keep bringing those up and I will make fun of you. If you have a legit reason for thinking it could be better, say it. I look at the new reviews when they come in. So if you have something to say that could make me better, by all means, say it. I will not hold it against you. In fact, I might hold against you in the matter of a hug. I'll just wrap you up in a hug and say, thank you for being honest. Anyways, now that you have subscribed, rated, and reviewed, please share this episode. Send it to someone who you think will be like, hey, that you think needs to hear this episode because, dude, check this guy out. Freaking on point. Everything he says is on point. Probably not, but hey, send it to him. Get me more listeners. I will appreciate it greatly. Once you have sent it to a person who you think will enjoy this episode, find someone who you think will absolutely hate it. Will not be able to stand it, and send it to them. Send it to someone who's going to hate it, get mad at me, and possibly increase my engagement when they start putting me on blast on Facebook and Twitter. I will accept it. It is a cross and a burden I must bear. So please send it to someone who you think will hate this, because hate and discontent make the world go round. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. Again, thanks to great partners with Blue Collar Beardsman, APR Coffee. Remember to check out their stuff. Links will be in the show notes. Again, thanks for listening. And as always, stay relentless. The Tyler Morgan Show is a relentless daring media production. The Tyler Morgan Show is supported by its listeners. To support the show, go to ko-fi.com/Tyler Morgan Show to donate there, or relentlessdaring.com and hit the donate button at the top of the page to set up your donation. All music used in the Tyler Morgan Show is used with permission from purpleplanet.com, link in the show notes. 2 Timothy 1:7.